All right, it's time to start the 2:30 session. Welcome. We're gonna from 2:30 to 3. We're gonna have Jeff Bolingbroke and Valerie Chartrand from the Parks Canada talking about their VR project.
Hello, my name is Jeff Bolingbroke, and I'm a new media officer with Parks Canada.
And I'm Valerie Chartrand, and I'm a new media specialist with Parks Canada. And
So we work with the new media strategies and investments department within Parks Canada, and that's the centralized group that deals with investigations and explorations into new media. So today we are here to tell you a little bit about a pilot project that we ran recently over the last year or so, and it was basically a very light baby steps version of a little venture into VR. Calling it VR may be one step too far. I think calling it a virtual field trip might be a little more appropriate, but while I'm talking, I think Valerie is going to start handing out some of the technology that we use, just so you can have a quick look at what it actually looks like.
yeah, so we just thought that we'd recirculate some of these headsets so that you can have a look at what Jeff was talking about while we're going through it. I have some sanitary wipes here, so if you want, after you're done, maybe just wipe your headset and pass it on to the next person.
Yep. So basically, what our pilot project involved was using Google Expeditions platform to create some programs that we then used for outreach this summer, and I'll get into that in a moment. So to start off, the platform is called Google Expeditions. It's basically an app that is available from app stores worldwide, and you can download it to a tablet and to phones. And so the basic idea is Google's invented this platform that is intended for teachers and students. So the teacher can download the app onto a tablet and then basically provide a virtual field trip for their students.
Just maybe a little example of that. So
Sure.
those of you who are looking into the headset, I have a tablet here so I can control what view you're seeing, and then I can pull up some information as you go. So there's some points of interest I can click and then get an image put up so that people can have a little bit more details about certain things.
So it works pretty well. It basically allows the teachers to, it provides them with a little bit of text, and it allows them to show students these places that they may not know that much about, so they can do a little bit of prep work in advance and suddenly become experts about anything that is involved in an expeditions program. When you publish a program, it's then available for download via the Expeditions app. So the Expeditions content basically consists of, you've got an intro text about each place. There are 5 to 8 scenes, and a scene is basically one panorama, so 360-degree image. There's a description text about the image, and then there's 3 to 5-ish points of interest, which are tagged to a location on the image. So when you actually have this on your head, you'll probably be able to figure this out a little bit better, but effectively, you've got if you imagine a 360 image, and there are, let's say it's an ocean scene, and there's a spot with a boat, and there's a spot with some whales, you can pinpoint the location of the whales and the boat, and then you can have some text explaining what is going on there.
So I just pulled up a caribou for some of you who are watching this.
Very much
just
like
as
a
an
boat
example.
and a whale, there's a caribou.
That's why it wasn't a boat.
That was
Boat, whale.
No.
We're looking at some of Canada's northern parks right now, so this is a sample, and I just pulled up a caribou. So maybe we should be
Maybe I'll
more
move
in
on to that
sync
one.
with.
This is Tuk-Tuk Nugget National Park. It is in the very far north of Canada, and it's in there's a big waterfall, there's a big canyon, and you may see a caribou there. So the text blocks, this is kind of important, have a very specific length, and it's by word count, and generally it's quite short. So when you're designing for this platform, you need to work on efficiency with your text is quite important. So one big reason that we worked on this platform is that Parks Canada has a fairly long-running relationship now with Google, and we have since about 2013, we have been trying to document a lot of our Parks Canada places, both indoor and outdoor, with the Google Trekker or various iterations thereof. And basically we're collecting Google Street View imagery and then publishing it to Google Street View on Google Maps. We, at this point, have about 160 sites from across the country, indoor, outdoor, national historic sites, national parks, and national marine conservation areas that we have covered, and we're sort of building on that collection all the time.
And one of the reasons that we looked at this platform altogether is that some of our places, like the ones that you're looking at right now, some of these northern parks are very inaccessible by a lot of our visitors. And so this is a way that we can truly easily share this, and also in a very expensive way. So we've talked about the fact that this is baby steps to VR, that it's kind of, it's kind of lower, medium res images essentially. It's not fantastic, but at least you can bring this imagery to people in an outreach context or in a classroom context. So that's why for us it was extremely important, because 160 of our places have this imagery. They have the interpreters. They have the way to bring this to people, and so this platform allows that.
So we had a lot of raw material basically to work with, and we're always looking for new and innovative ways to make use of and promote that imagery that we've collected over the years. So why use Google Expeditions? We just talked about the ongoing collaboration. It's a very simple, light, easy to deploy system. You basically just need to choose a series of panoramas, and you need to choose some text, and there's not a whole lot more to it than that. You need to forge a relationship with Google to actually publish on the platform, but that may change in the future. And it also, in terms of Parks Canada, we have a lot of interpreters and a lot of interpretation going on, and so it was kind of the program delivery style was something that we're fairly used to already, so it was deployable for our outreach teams as well. And then the nice part is that Google already is marketing this platform to the education sector, so teachers will be kind of being made aware of this if they aren't already, so it's a good way to have the deployment ready to go. Okay, so our pilot was to create 5 programs with Google Expeditions, and then take those programs and do a series of public demonstrations, and then do some research and evaluation to determine what people liked, what people didn't like, determine whether it was the kind of thing that we would want to scale up and produce on a larger scale in a number of our different sites across the country. And so part of what that required was to subvert the platform a little bit, because we were working with our outreach team who were going to be delivering it to the public in public spaces. So we needed to create some content that was basically going to work on a platform designed for teachers and that teachers could be finding and using in their classrooms, but also that would work really well for an outreach location where you have people walking past and they may or may not know that much about Parks Canada and would like to know more. And so to that end, we worked with an interpretive writing contractor to help with the content. So for the public demos, we used 2 different iterations, 2 different varieties. And so we had a lower resolution, which was basically an iPod Touch, and a Mattel viewfinder, which is the one at the top there. And that was the headset and the display. And the higher resolution on the bottom there, we have the Samsung Gear headset and the Google Pixel phone inside. So there was a higher resolution and a lower resolution. And when we deployed this, there was always a group of 6-8 participants, and we would try to keep the same devices for that whole group, just to make sure that nobody had gear envy, which is a concern. Okay, so moving on to our evaluation program. This is a sort of an idea of what it looked like when we were doing these in public demos. So that you can see the person in the green is the park interpreter, and then the other people on the right there are the participants. So we worked with our outreach team to deliver these demos at a sea container. So Inspiration Village was a pop-up village set up for Canada 150. It was our 150th anniversary this year in downtown Ottawa, and there were these. Thank you. There was a village basically full of sea containers, and Parks Canada had one of them. So we designed a research program as well to determine what the people liked and didn't, and we worked with a contractor to do that. And we were unable to actually do direct public opinion research, so we couldn't really ask people, did you like this, did you not like it? We couldn't do surveys, we couldn't do focus groups. So what we ended up doing was a participant observation study. So that was what we worked with the contractor to produce. And our basically what we were looking for was whether this was well received, whether we should be doing more of this. So here's a quick glance at what our forum looked like. So we had 6 to 8 participants and a leader, and then we had another person who was off to the side and who was observing the participants and filling out this form for each participant. And it was a blind, bias-free control study. So the different headsets had different colored dots on them, and we just rolled a dice in advance to choose which participant you were going to observe to try to avoid bias. So the study took place, we did 53 days of participant observation study this summer, 1,540 total participants in the public demos, and 282 of those were observed. And then 39% used the lower quality and 61% had the higher quality. The majority used the demo indoors, which is basically inside a sea container, so it's not like indoor, but, and then the outdoor component was just outside the sea can. So, what did we discover?
All right.
Valerie, take over from here.
So overall, we got enough information to allow us to move forward with this project and to be able to roll it out. Based on the criteria that was set out, and based on the fact that this was an observation study. Overall, we found that there was quite a bit of ease of use with this. There was not a lot of technical challenges, so people took to it very, very easily. The biggest technical glitch that we had was at first we need to have a router to link the tablet to the multiple phones, and if you don't, you should always test that in advance, because if you have too many connections, you may need a better router. So you just have to ensure that your connections match the router that you're using for this. There's actually no Wi-Fi required either, so it's literally a link between all of the platforms that are in the room, so you don't need to have any other connections, which for us at Parks Canada makes it ideal, because in a lot of places we're kind of in areas where connections are challenging. Beyond that was really the only technical challenge that we saw. Other than that, it was really the fact that you have to ensure that the narrator can be heard by a larger group of people. So right now 6 or 7 is not too bad, but we already had some issues with some people not hearing the person guiding the expedition as well as they could. For the next slide, some physical issues with the VR technology. It helps that prior to an experience like that, we ask people whether they have motion sickness or not. So we actually were able to reduce that as a problem as much as possible. So we had only 4% of people exhibited a little bit of issues with motion sickness. And otherwise, the other physical issue we had was physical strain in the arms, because we made a decision not to use the head strap for hygienic reasons. So we had people having to hold the device, and after, if it's a longer expedition, it could be an issue, but for shorter stints it seemed to be fine. Otherwise, when we look at the satisfaction with the experience, overall the participants seem to be satisfied with the experience. So 92% of the participants were really engaged, and overall the participants for the majority expressed surprise, amazement, and amusement or fun. So those were pretty good for us. So I'll if you want all of the stats, you'll see them exactly in the presentation that we'll share afterwards. But just overall, it brought actually quite a bit of satisfaction altogether. When we looked at the appeal by age, we were able to kind of break it down a little bit more. The experience appealed to older children between the ages of 7 and 14. We found that children under 7 really didn't have the attention span to be quite as interested and as immersed in the experience. And middle-aged adults also seemed to have the second highest level of interest. Overall, one of the things that we did find is that the excitement level was slightly higher during the orientation session than it was during the experience itself, and that could be explained by the fact that the technology may not be as, you may have to set expectations in such a way that people know what they're getting into. So if you're talking about a VR expedition, it can seem extremely exciting, and then you're finding yourself with a 360 view that it may not be as high resolution as you were expecting, or it might not be as exciting. So this is just a pilot at this point, but this is something that we noticed a little bit of a lower level of satisfaction once people were immersed in the experience. But that was a slight variation. I think that really helped us. So that helps us to see that basically we have to set the expectations, but also if we can aim for the higher quality as we move forward with this, I think we'd be better served. So both with the technology and the imagery. The overall impressions. So overall, the program really seemed to be exciting, fun, and interactive for most. The observations showed that people really showed a sense of discovery, learning, and they got an increased interest in Parks Canada overall after this experience. So that was very successful for us. And then overall, I think Jeff talked a little bit about the equipment earlier. So some people were, I think that goes without saying, people who got the lower quality equipment got a lower level of satisfaction. And so we're talking about equipment, but also as we move forward with this, this is another thing that kind of made us look at the quality of what we deliver, and we should be able to do some higher res imagery also moving forward, not just to use the existing street view imagery that exists.
Yeah. The reason we wanted to test the two different types was because we will probably be rolling this out to a number of different places across the country, and everyone's got a different budget and different budget constraints, and so we wanted to know if it was possible to run this on a lower end set of gear for cost savings. And yes, it's possible, but really it's kind of going to be better received on higher end gear, which is probably not too surprising.
And even lower, if we're talking about the equipment also, there's still a possibility for places that may not have a huge budget for this to even use a Google Cardboard level. So that's even at what level lower, so it's not as easy, but it's easy to at least roll out to classes of 30 people, for example.
So we'll just be very quick here with what we learned. So you definitely would want to have at least 2 staff members managing the whole show. One person's going to be your tour guide and leader, and then the other person's going to be signing people up and to help out and everything else. If you have your demonstration set up in a place where the public is walking by and they can see it, then it'll generate interest probably, and more people will come and want to be taking part in your experience. If you try to schedule things a long time in advance, you might not get people coming back. So if you sign people up for 5 minutes in advance of the next viewing, then you're more likely to actually have a full slate of people. Orientation is important at the beginning. You want to tell people don't stand up. You want to tell people, we don't have a head strap, so you're going to be holding on to this for a little while. If you need to take it off because you're going to get sick, that's perfect. That's A-okay. And you want to have a relatively quiet space when you're running this, or else you'll have noise pollution issues. The appeal of the content wasn't formally evaluated, but some anecdotal observations along the lines of we really thought it was good to have some of our more remote places where people are unlikely to actually be able to get to on their own, because it just sort of piqued an interest in places that people don't know that much about or hadn't really thought of that much before. We could pretty much roll this out with any of our parks, indoor or outdoor, which is really interesting. So a lot of our national historic sites are indoor, they're old historic buildings and things like that, so we can have different floor by floor, we can have room by room, and then national parks we can have highlights of different locations and things like that. Some people thought that having headphones and ambient background noise, or even just noise in the room, might enhance the experience. That's quite probable. Technical considerations. We didn't use that head strap because of hygienic reasons. Some people definitely think that should be used. It's kind of up to you, but you have to manage that part of it. What you just did with the wiping on the thing will eventually increase the wear and tear on those devices. So you'd probably want to get some kind of a cover for it that you can burn through in a couple of rounds and still be able to use the device and just replace the cover. And then the very last thing I'll mention is that the screens on the Google Pixels were easily subject to screen burn. So because you've got two lenses, if you leave it in the sun, and it pretty much works like a magnifying glass, it projects the sun straight onto your phone and it can leave these little burn marks, which when you've then got it right in your face are very apparent, even if they're teeny tiny when you're looking at it from the screen. So don't do that. Highly recommended. And I'll pass it over to Valerie for just a quick plug on our Parks Canada app.
Yeah, just a quick plug. Just wanted to mention, because we just rolled this out this year also, and this is another one of the outreach programs that we have. Is we now have a mobile app that allows people to discover all of our 180 parks that in National Historic Sites and National Marine Conservation Areas that are open to visitors. People are able to find them based on their location. They're able to unlock some exciting stickers and frames for photos when they visit our places. Based on their geolocation, and then there's a lot of information. And the idea of it, this app, was really because Parks Canada had various on-site tours, mobile tours, and we didn't really have anything that kind of wrapped up everything. So the idea with that one is kind of a first step to manage our constellation of apps, manage our overall app portfolio. We basically rolled out this app that is kind of an interface, an umbrella that allows people to link to these various other products that we have. So it really is like one, even though it's modular, it's really one tool in your pocket that allows you to have a look at all the services that are available. So for camping reservations, for pass reservations, for our website, and as well as all our other apps. So far it's exceeded our expectations, and it's going really well. But just thought that I'd mention that if ever this is something that you are interested in, if you want to download it, it's on both the App Store and the Google Play Store, and just have a look at it and
Come
maybe,
to Canada.
Visit
our places.
come to visit us. Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? Yes.
There's been at least 3 research projects and papers published about gender differences with nausea with 3D devices. Did you notice any gender differences?
Not that have been noted in our research.
The numbers were low.
Really.
Because you were able to take it off, I think that really helped
Yeah.
people who might have otherwise been strapped in and have a hard time dealing with the nausea issues.
And also the fact that we've screened out most of these people before the experience anyway, because we warned them of possible motion sickness, so people opted out normally.
It's also a static image, so there's not a whole lot moving around. So you would move yourself, and if you started to feel dizzy, so it's a very good point. But I
It's interesting.
don't have an answer. That
Yeah, no, there's been a bunch of research on this that suggests that it's like, I can't remember the numbers, but women more than men
mm-hmm.
get nausea.
Interesting.
And so you have to be aware of that when you're doing an install.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely.
Exactly what you did. It's a practice. Do you get sick?
Yes.
You look at 3D objects.
Yeah.
Stereo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good point.
So the text that appears on the screen, is that triggered by where you're looking, or is that something that you control from there?
It's something, anything that appears on the screen. So you'd have, like, for example, I was showing you like the caribou that was showing up as I click on it would appear here. So The guide would have the guide would be the one with the text and would be the one following along and have the quiz questions and have all of the contextual information, and then we'd be able to pull up as points of interest some images for the users. So normally this is a guided experience, and but you can do it in solo mode, and then you would have this all of this information as a user, but that's not what it's meant for. It's really meant for an interpreter or a teacher to be in front of a group and to be able to guide them through this experience.
The users, so when you choose a point of interest, if you're already looking at that spot, then a little bullseye kind of thing will start to appear. If you're not looking at that spot, you'll just see an arrow in a periphery, which means turn around, and then you'll find that spot.
Another thing that's really interesting is that, I don't know if you can see, well, you probably can't see it, but there you can see little smiley faces on here. So if I have like 6 people on here, I can see where they are and where they're looking, and I can tell them, go to the right.
So yeah, you can determine once you've got a critical mass of attention actually on the spot, and when you're students, they're probably gonna be all over the place, but when you've sort of generally got most of the people paying attention, then you can start talking about that spot. Yes?
You had mentioned that one of the concerns with technology was the burning that you can get on the screens.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering, does that mean that you're looking away from using the VR through your phones? Are you looking at like Oculus Rift or those other VR programs, or?
It means that we're not going to put them in the sunshine with the lenses facing up. That was the only thing that made that go wrong was being outside in the direct sunshine and having them placed the wrong way up. So we didn't experience any other major technical difficulties. So at this time, you could go with any sort of headset viewer. We were just looking at different ways that it would be deployable on a scale, because, like I said, our department is basically, we work out of Ottawa and we're the centralized agency, and then when we sort of determine, yes, this is a good fit for Parks Canada, then we start to talk to all of our colleagues in the field, and they will start to make their own, and then buy the equipment and set it up in their own trade shows and things in their local regions. So we're trying to provide an advisory role to someone who's trying to set this up in advance. So I think what we would advise is don't leave it in the sunshine. But I don't know that we would say go with the higher end or lower end viewer necessarily. Yes.
Time for one more.
Okay, one more. Yeah.
So,
Yes.
so
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I had
I
another.
was wondering about, so what we've done so far is kind of a pilot. Like, is it out there in the main Google expeditions, and are you getting, like, are teachers independently picking it up as well, or is this like, I say this because we have an expedition as well,
Good.
and I've been trying to get numbers and all of that.
I haven't got numbers from them. No, I have no idea. It may never have been downloaded by a teacher. It may have been downloaded by hundreds of thousands. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
And yes, they are out there. So we
Yeah,
have
they're
four
published.
of them right now. We're gonna keep publishing some. They're extremely simple at this point because of the fact that it was a pilot, but we intend to have some more intricate ones coming down.
Thank you everyone for your questions, and
Thank you.